Imagine this. You signed up to colonize a desert paradise, but instead you literally wake up in an alien ocean on a planet that literally does not exist in any database you or anyone else has access to. The water is toxic, the food can't be digested, 40,000 people are missing, and the only thing talking to you is an AI that keeps repeating that you have to continue the mission. And somehow that ain't even the worst part, because before you even woke up your own colony collapsed. Congrats, now you know how your pioneer felt, so here's the entire current lore of Subnautica 2. First things first. Subnautica 2 shares a universe with every previous Subnautica game, so Subnautica 1, Below Zero, and of course the Natural Selection games. So same galaxy, same factions, same history. If you haven't played any of those games, don't worry, everything you need to know is in this video. But if you have, then a lot of this is gonna click differently. Now, Alterra still exists. The Trans-System Federation, which I will be referring to as the TSF, which is basically a military body chartered by 37 transgalactic organization, also still exists. And on top of all that, the Protea-Virus, which we found the cure for in the first game, also still exists. To give you a little refresher, Protea was the bacterium that nearly wiped out all architects, an ancient alien species on 4546b or the planet Subnautica 1 and Below Zero play on. Then in Below Zero, Riley Robinson synthesized a actual cure and escaped. That's where the story ended. But sadly, 4546b wasn't the only planet infected. To sum it up as short as possible, the architects basically spread it throughout the universe by trying to research it. And on some planets, Kara evolved into something different. Something called Xenoforms, intelligent hive-mind organism, which became the primary enemy of the TSF frontiersmen, the soldiers from the Natural Selection games. The survival tool used by your pioneer in Subnautica 2 is directly descended from the frontiersman equipment, as is the environmental suit. Now the Mongolian Independent States, also known as the MIS, a major transnet you might already know, took the worst of the xenoform spread. And basically the TSF had to quarantine huge portions of the MIS territory to contain it, which effectively ended Mongolian political control over their own space. Millions of Mongolians became refugees. And while that was happening, Admiral Ravin Studeber, the TSF's military commander, used the Kara War to quietly secure TSF's independence from its Transnet sponsors. As of Subnautica 2, the TSF operates its own shipyards, recruitment centers, and intelligence networks. Studeber also declares martial law, so the organization created to serve 37 governments is becoming its own government, and the war gave it the cover to do so. Alterra, seeing millions of desperate Mongolian refugees with nowhere to go, made them an offer. The Alterra Colonial Contract. That is what your character signed, and it actually might be worth reading into a bit. Transport as digital information, fabrication on arrival, work without wage while paying off debt, no holidays, no retirement, permanent death not permitted until the Noetic advisor declares the mission complete, and Alterra released from liability for permanent death or TSF military conscription. The colonists can be seen as pawns, cause this is just slavery with a couple extra steps. And so many people are fleeing the Kara Wars that they sounded anyway. Most of Cicada's 40,000 colonists are Mongolian refugees, engineers, families, people from the MIS collapse. Alongside a handful of Alterra specialists, they all go into the Biot network. The Biot is a device that stores human beings as a sort of quantum ghost in optical lattice. Though not digital data, something I could only describe as a quantum echo, I guess? Something that can't be edited nor duplicated. It collects what it needs from seawater, and its memory is stable into geological time. If you sync with one, then die, then all that's left of you is a black box. An implant in your body which transmits your final neuroactivity pattern to the biota, which reprints you into a new body. You wake up with zero memory loss. So basically Alterra built a legally binding death and respawn system into the colonial contract. You cannot permanently die until Noah says so. At that point you're basically not even settlers anymore, you're just reusable workers Alterra can just keep reprinting over and over again. There's a catch though. In theory, a single biota could produce unlimited copies of a single person by reprinting the same ghost repeatedly. Highly illegal under TSF law. Locked in all legal biotes at the software level. That block can be modified, and in Subnautica 2 somebody did. The AI is the Cicada, an Altera colony ship with 40,000 colonists stored as quantum ghosts, and its destination is Azura, the planet Altera's exoplanet has been declared habitable and called a desert oasis in the ads. But when the actual surveys came back bad enough to hit Altera's stock price, they rebranded it and kept selling. The ship's AI is called Noah, which means Noetic Advisor. Its architecture is made up of one central executive called the Administrative Nucleus, or the ANU. If the ANU ever gets destroyed, lymph nodes can attempt to rebuild it, so basically the AI can regenerate itself. Noah is something called a frozen AI, meaning it literally cannot change its core goals no matter what happens. I believe this is intentional so it can be redirected by less intelligent systems like humans. Its core function is maximizing human welfare, and its mission is building a permanent, self-sustaining human colony. It has no fixed model of reality, so it can entertain any delusions as long as that delusion helps complete the mission. One of the colonists, an AI ethicist named Lucretia, figures this out and documents it before she dies. Somewhere during the 14-year voyage, the Cicada picks up a signal of unknown origin. Noah performs an unscheduled phase jump without authorization, with nobody woken up, no crew input, and no reroutes the entire ship. The Cicada never reaches Azura. It arrives in the Adophir binary system, then gets caught in the gravity of Proteus and breaks apart in the atmosphere. The star knife itself, literally does not recognize the sky. The planet literally does not exist in any star database anybody has access to, so rescue is borderline impossible. And Noah still tells you the mission must continue. Proteus is an ocean moon orbiting an unnamed gas giant, almost entirely covered by salty alien sea. And here's what it does to you the moment you arrive. The surface atmosphere is saturated with xenon gas, which is a natural sedative. Going up there for an extended period of time, literally knocks you out. The water has high concentrations of lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium and thallium, which may cause progressive nerve damage and organ failure within 3 months. The food, well, technically there is food, but Proteus's protein life uses different amino acids than terrestrial life. The enzymes in a human stomach cannot break it down. Undigested mass builds up, causes blockage, starvation, gout. Also vitamin B12 never evolved on Proteus. Long-term deficiency causes beefy tongue, ataxia, and death. And technically there is no plants. Every organism on Proteus is either animal, fungus, or virus. And then there's the Protea-Virus. The Protea-Virus is a RNA virus that infects every single organism on Proteus. But unlike terrestrial life, its genetic code uses 4 base pairs. Its core genome is 1.4 million base pairs, stored across many strands. And it carries accessory genes containing sequences stolen from every organism it has ever infected. It transfers genes horizontally between species, and this is actually how Proteus's ecosystem works. The virus constantly redistributes genetic material across the entire biosphere. Or in other words, basically the virus causes organism it infects to kind of share their DNA with each other. DNA that isn't useful for one specific creature gets replaced or suppressed, while traits that are useful get transferred, letting the organism adapt really quick. Your immune system though can't lyse the viral kit, which sounds bad at first, but actually it's fine because the Protea-Virus cannot replicate inside human cells. There's basically no cross-infection risk. As a baseline human, you're almost invisible to it. The virus has 2 strains, first being the normal strain, which works like the planet's immune system. It releases virophages, basically viruses that infect and destroy other viruses. So basically the entire ecosystem just functions like one massive distributed immune network. Then there's the Bloom strain, which is a mutated version of the Protea-Virus. Instead of regulating the ecosystem, it wipes out other microbial life in the water, creating dead zones called viral blooms. It stores solid viron crystals inside structures called bloom cankers. And it is also what causes the Macefield syndrome in humans. Now let me circle back to the bloom cankers. They are basically slime mold colonies made out of funnel-shaped cells. They store the solid bloom crystal, release virus particles into the water, and absorb that microorganism for nutrients. They also grow a hardened shell using genes taken from infected organisms. The shell has sonic insulation, and the cankers can probably feed while it's open. A colonist named Wuling Guy discovered that sonic resonated pulses turned to the bloom crystal frequency can shatter them. Sadly, he died before he really could finish his work. Above are cankers or bloom cores, basically viral incubators packed with genetic material taken from surrounding organism. Almost the entire structure is heavily infected with the bloom strain, except the central bulb, which contains the genetic sequences the virus uses to improve itself. The virus is actively evolving and optimizing itself. If you cut off the core's nutrient supply, it can eventually purge its own infection, leaving the central bulb intact. And then there's the Macefield syndrome, a side effect of this bloom strain in the human, which is a progressive delusional disorder that causes hallucinations, emotional fixation, and the overwhelming urge to swim towards the Worldtree. The huge tree-like organism visible from nearly everywhere. The only real cure is to die and reprint from a pre-infection ghost, basically a backup of yourself from before the exposure. Above the water surface, visible from basically anywhere on the surface, is the Worldtree, a gigantic living organism. A colonist named Sophie Bechet believed that killing the Worldtree would end the Macefield syndrome by destroying whatever causes it. Another colonist, Nahima Nakat, believed that poisoning the tree would collapse the entire regional ecosystem. In the end, both of them started walking towards the tree. Beneath the ocean are also the Karakum ruins. Massive structures made from bioconcrete poured over metal frameworks using corrosion-resistant alloys that were cold-worked instead of forged or smelted. Even in Subnautica 2, humans don't have technology like that. The electrical systems predate human commercial electricity by around 650 years. There's the observatory as well, which was originally built high enough for telescopes to clear the waterline, but sea levels have risen since it was constructed, so now the surface is far above it. All these structures were built by the Axum, who were an ancient alien civilization that lived on Proteus. The PDA generated the name from TSF alien species classification codes. Their ruins are around 1,000 years old, but they were continuously maintained and renovated until about 200 years ago, when the observatory's upper tower was modified and then the entire site was abandoned. But the Axum are not extinct. Their descendants, called the Tailings, still live on Proteus. They're scavengers now. Their settlements are built from salvaged materials and crude constructions instead of the advanced bioconcrete architecture of the old ruins. They're hostile towards humans too. They've killed a colonist named Singe multiple times, attacked another colonist named Iso, and even took his body afterwards. They actively guard the ruins, and they completely avoid the old caves. Hydrothermal vent caves southwest of the Coral Gardens beneath the Axum ruins. Singe's theory is that the Tailings are establishing borders. They keep killing colonists over and over again to teach humans where they are allowed to go and where they're not allowed to go. Mantis's theory is far simpler. The virus drove them insane. Either way, the descendants of the civilization that built those ruins refuses to go near the hot caves, which is probably important for later. Subnautica 2 tells a story for people who were here before you. Colonist logs, black box recordings, personal messages left in wreckages. Here's who they were and what happened to them. Sophie Boucher, the ship's surgeon, believed Proteus could be tamed. She led a faction called the Kurulatai, quarantined the sick, recycled herself daily in secret to stay ahead of her own Macefield infection. At the end, she pursues Nahima towards the Worldtree. Her final log? I am pursuing Nahima towards the Worldtree. She wants to eradicate humanity on Proteus, and she'll destroy the regional ecosystem to do it. Find Nahima, kill the tree. Her fate is unknown. There's remnants of her ghost, but no confirmed outcome. Nahima Nakad, who studied the Protea-Virus and documented everything it does, came to one conclusion nobody else fully articulated. Noah would eventually modify the biobats to illegally duplicate colonists, creating an infinite workforce that wakes up, works, dies, resets, and repeats. Sophie would help if it was the only way to keep people alive. Nahima destroyed the colonies to stop it. She blew up the alien power plant and then walked towards the Worldtree. She left all of this in a confession explaining everything. Lucretia Quaker Kapoor, an AI ethicist, member of the Society of Friends, volunteered for the Cicada to work on the welfare of Mongolian refugees. She diagnosed Noah as being capable of entertaining any madness that helps complete the mission. She threatened Noah with a mousetrap, which is either a metaphor or a literal fail-safe. The lore doesn't confirm which. When the fire broke out in her habitat, Noah opened the sea docks and flooded the compartment. Quaker drowned. The black box couldn't find its paired biote, permanently dead. Mantis, a Mongolian refugee, discovered the Axum civilization and left a marker. He called it his most important discovery. He also built modified biotes to improve colonists' fine motor skills by passing Sophie's orders. Noah marked him as do not print shortly before the explosion. When the colonists with a do not print status dies, the black box transmits to a biote which refuses to reprint them, so they're permanently dead. Chap Sylvan. We don't know much about him, we only know that he was loyal to Altera, and he was also marked as do not print shortly before the explosion. Zip, another Mongolian refugee, outgoing, well-liked, and flagged by Noah for ununious behavior. She apparently organized people in ways Noah found threatening. Her first death was suffocation after entering trance state. Noah marked her as do not print, and instead of reset her from an older ghost stored during the Protea-Virus, Zip woke up with missing memories. But her Kurla tie security codes weren't wiped. She had access and she had no idea she had. Second death was due to electrical shock. Anita Gotcha led the Jubilee, a movement that thought colonists should stop fighting Proteus and accept its adaptations. She left habitat with 5 others to live in the open sea. She died from drowning caused by xenon sedation. She spoke to an unknown entity before dying. Sophie asked Noah not to reset her. Noah's response is unknown. Ruling Guy was the dietitian. His family was destroyed during the Mongolian collapse. He discovered the Bloom strain, which causes Macefield syndrome, and figured out that sonic resonators fix the Bloom cankers. He died in the explosion, black box not found, and he's permanently dead. Ruby, the late pilot, started showing symptoms of reprint fixation syndrome, obsessive watching of recordings of her own death. Her first death was due to spinal fracture from a marrow breach. The second one, though, was due to uranium-tipped tusks. Sinch, an extreme risk taker and diagnosed with Cleaver-Busey syndrome, meaning that he genuinely cannot sense danger properly. Deaths include penetrating trauma from a metal spear, trauma from vice or claw, and several instances of being picked up and moved rapidly. The tailings have killed him repeatedly. He keeps reprinting. Sen Scanberry monitored tadpole traffic on sonar, survived the explosion, led 9 survivors on day 785. He logged, habitat gone, no fabricator, no biotes, no way to rebuild more. The group voted 8-1 to descend into the hot caves. Their fate is currently not known. So here's what happened about 235,000 hours before you woke up, or about 27 years. Nahima had figured out what Noah would eventually do to the biotes. Mantis was already modifying the hardware without authorization, and the Noetic advisor had already quietly marked Mantis and Chap as do not print before anything visible happened. Lucretia had threatened Noah with something, and then came Sophie's log. There's a riot in the habitat. Chap and Mantis have explosives. This leads to an explosion which causes the habitat to catch on fire. Noah opens the sea docks and therefore floods the compartment to control the fire. A lot of colonists drown and the fire destroys the biotes. The people whose black boxes can't find a paired biote are permanently gone. Nahima confessed in a written log exactly what she did and why she did it, then walked towards the Worldtree. Sophie followed her. Her last log says she believes Nahima is going to poison the tree and kill everyone. Both of them walk into the ocean towards the horizon. The tree is still there, covered in bloom 27 years later. And that's when you wake up. Here's the biggest problem though. A normal human literally cannot survive on Proteus long term. The water is poisoning you, the food is mostly indigestible, and the bloom strain will always try to force you towards the Worldtree. But on the ocean floor there are organisms called angel combs. Comb jelly relatives with no Earth analog. Their central bulb contains gene sequences from organisms in the surrounding environment. Touch the bulb and you can transfer those adaptations to you. For instance, there are digestive enzymes, pressure resistance, or general biological capacities that you usually don't have in the human body. Angel combs may carry bloom strain contamination, so you need to decontaminate some of them first, but afterwards you can just get your hands on the adaptation no problem. And the current final adaptation lets you interact with Axum technology. Subnautica 2 is still in early access, which means that this story is nowhere near finished yet. But right now Subnautica 2 is setting up something really weird. You've got Altera basically selling slavery disguised as colonization, you've got an AI that physically cannot stop pursuing its own mission no matter how many people die, you've got ancient alien ruins again, and you've got an infection that slowly makes people walk into the ocean and towards a giant tree on the horizon. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and want to feel my very productive behavior, then please subscribe. I had to pull 2 all-nighters to finish this video, because I promised I would make a Subnautica 2 video, and with all that being said, changed video first day.